Hello, I am Khagendra Chhetry. I am an attorney. I practice law in New York City for the last 30 years. I am from Nepal originally, and I came here many years back. So I have a very interesting story to tell today. I am with Anuz and Dipika in the podcast at the end of the day.
Thank you so much, Khagendra, for this wonderful introduction. And by the way, we must tell this. Khagendra actually has a really interesting story because he is a trailblazer in attorney field for Nepalese-American attorneys. Right,
Yes.
Dipika?
Of course. And then there's hardly any Nepalese in the US or in New York who do not know Khagendra Chhetry.
Right.
So you are a person, he is a person who people like us highly look up to.
Right. And Khagendra, so let's hear a story.
Okay.
So you are the first Nepalese-American attorney in America. How did you start?
I came here to study law in the beginning when I'm very young, 22 years old boy, and didn't know what was going on here. Actually, the story was I didn't even know what was the weather like in New York when I landed here on December 28. And then I was wearing a one, t-shirt type of thing and one jacket. And when I came out of JFK airport, I saw a lot of snow outside.
Which year was that?
That was in 1983.
Oh my God, I was born in 87.
So, so then I realized that it's extremely cold outside. Then I went inside the terminal. I remember that. And then because what happened was that I had asked a friend of mine who had returned from California at that time, what is the weather like? He said, it's beautiful. So that was the information I had. You know, that information was very difficult that time. We didn't have any internet. We didn't have any such a phone call luxury like this. No cell phone, nothing.
Right.
So basically, we were just on the basic cell phone, telephone calls, and there was very lack of information. And I came there, and then I realized that I was in the wrong time and the wrong weather. So that happened. And actually, then that time my plan was to study law in the USA, and I had applied to different law schools at that time, but I was still selecting where to go. And then when I went to the Yale Law School that time, they had invited me. I went to see the dean, and then the dean of Yale Law School told me that, you must be very you are not wearing any jacket. You must be freezing, And then, I told him that, yes, I am. So then after the meeting, right after that, I remember buying a jacket outside the New Haven, street. So I kept that jacket for a long time as a memory, actually, but I lost it now. I don't know where it is in the course of moving. But what I'm saying is that was the situation there. There were no Nepali, and it was hard to find anybody who spoke Nepali except few who were working at the United Nations and the Nepal mission there.
Right.
And one time, it's very interesting that I found one Nepali-looking guy on 6th Avenue when I was passing by. And then I thought this guy must be a Nepali. And I just went there. He was a little, savage, like Nepali kind of height. And then I said, then I said that even if he doesn't understand what's the matter, I said, in Nepali, I said, are you a Nepali? And I was sure if he is a Nepali, he will reply to me. And then when I said that, he heard it and he turned around and said, I'm a Nepali, he said.
Right.
So then, he became a good friend of mine. I still meet him. I mean, he's an elderly person now. That was then. And then what happened was when I was, looking for the university, and Columbia University had offered me admission at that time, but I didn't have money to go. And I told the dean that, I don't think I can study because tuition is very expensive, and, almost the courses are going to start. So maybe I'll have to go back to Nepal because the financial situation is not there. And then he told me, you made already some friends here, come back tomorrow, don't leave. We really want you to be here, and they told me that, so why don't you come tomorrow and see what we can do. We'll try to find some oxygen. You have a lot of oxygen in here. You are from Mount Everest, probably you don't have a lot of oxygen, meaning that you don't have a lot of money. Maybe we'll try to find something here.
Right.
So next day I went there, and eventually they had made a decision that I was given, tuition waiver and then some stipend. So that was the beginning of my, law school here. And eventually, I I had to work my ways. During the class times also, I was doing my, work in the libraries and all of that. That's how I studied basically here. Then I, started my legal journey here and went to, completed my law school. And in the life, people make a lot of decisions. And in decision-making process, there are very difficult times when people have to really make, even if they don't want to, but they are forced to make decisions. Right. So that's what the pressure that makes, whether or not you are making a right decision or wrong decision. So I think that's how some people who happen to make a right decision and on the right time, those are also lucky people, I think. Not everybody gets that. So, but I think at some point in a life, everybody gets that chance, but you have to recognize when it's the right time to do it. Right. So that was the time that I was planning to go back to Nepal after my law school here, and somehow the NAACP Legal Defense Fund's director, Julius Chamber, told me that, why don't you come and work for me for 6 months?
Okay. In his law firm?
In his NAACP Legal Defense law firms, yeah. Eventually, I took the bar exam, and then I realized that after the bar exam I passed, I became the first Nepali to become a lawyer here in America, and then work here. So then I decided that after bar exam, then other friends said, why don't you work in a private law firm couple of months and see how you like it. And then I started working for a law firm, and they hired me, and then after some time, then it became some sort of regular stuff that I was doing, working, busy, and eventually I didn't realize that a couple of years have gone by. Right. And I kept on working in my practice. I set up my law firm afterwards. Yes. Okay. At some point, that was in '94. I set up my law firm. Before that, I was working for the New York City Human Rights Commission. Okay. So it happens that I never intended to go for that job. I had not realized that I don't know when I had applied. I sent my resume. It was in their data bank, and they pulled my resume and they called me for interview, and I went there. They hired me. Okay. And then I started working for the it was an appeal level office for the human rights cases that we were deciding there. So I used to work for the commissioner. So that was very good, interesting experience. And then I started after that. Right after that, I took that was a paternity leave. I took off, and then I started my own law practice.
People like us who are new young immigrants, we look up to you. Did you have anybody who you could look up to back then?
Well, at that time, for Nepali, I didn't have anyone, but I did have some of my professors that I went to study in India, and they had gone to Colombia, and they had done pretty good education there. So they were one of the motivating factor for me. So what I'm saying is that there has to be something that you have to be connected to in order to get something to be done. And not only that, you have to be really inspired and determined, because I came and knocked the door. Right. They didn't tell me that you come over here and we have this place for you, and you go to this law school, we'll give you money. It was not like that. It was I went and knocked the door, and then they listened to me. Right. So, as I was saying that I went to different law schools, and it happened so that the Columbia was the one that was chosen for me. Actually, I knocked the door there, and it happened so that they responded to me with this kind of help. So what I'm saying is that if I had not done this, and if I was thinking like, oh, okay, so nobody has done anything nobody has responded to my mail, so why should I go and talk to these people? If I had done that, probably I would have not made it. Right. So the main reason was that I went and knocked the door, and then they opened it for me. Right. So this was the whole thing that I personally felt that if in America, if anyone who wants to be very successful, it's not going to work otherwise. This is the only way. I think you go and knock. If you want something, you have to tell. It's not like you keep quiet and you don't want to tell your story. It's not going to happen, because this is how you can sell yourself, or this is how you can see where the opportunities are. And also, you don't have to be really smart and very talented. You have to be very determined and hardworking and consistent. And that's what it comes to at the end. And as long as you have a good determination and you are doing it right, and then hardworking, I think you can beat the others.
And Khagendra, so how did you come up with the idea of starting your own law firm in 1994, I believe?
That time I was, I had already had some experience working for a couple of law firms. I worked for a large law firm, it's called White & Case. They had 12,000 lawyers. Okay. They still have. And then I worked for some other private lawyers where they had a lot of litigation cases. And I'll tell you a story that I was working for a law firm in Mineola, and this lawyer told me that tomorrow there is a trial, you have to go. And I said, I'm not prepared for the case. This is the first time I'm doing this criminal case. And he told me, don't worry, you just go there tomorrow and get a new date. And I thought, okay, fine, then that's okay, it's easy. But I thought that it is my duty to review the file. And when I looked out the folder, there were 10 big folders that I couldn't even carry myself. So I could not even read the whole file and forget about, starting a trial the next day. And it happens to that it was a murder case. So he was handling the case. He had been lawyer for some time, which I didn't know until I reached the court. And I went to the court, and then it happens so that my client was the lead person in the whole case, and there were like 10 other different lawyers in different defendants, and everybody was looking at me. I said, you go first. I said, why? And they said, no, you are the first one. Your law firm, you are the main defendant's, lawyer. And I was not sure what's going on here. And then I was trying to figure out. Then judge comes in. I said, are you ready? I said, Judge, I'm just coming here on the case. I'm not ready. I don't even know about the whole case. And the client comes and said, are you going to kill me or something? You are not prepared. So I never met you before. So how can I do this? And then the other lawyers were also surprised. And I was also surprised because I didn't know that. I told the judge that I'm here just to get a new date. Yeah. And the judge said, no, this case has been going on for a long time. I'm not going to give you time. And then he said, you start selecting the jury. And then I was just shocked. I tried to call, and then I couldn't get hold of the main lawyer in the office. And so that was a very tough situation. And then I came back to the courtroom. Then I found that the government's main lawyer had some personal emergency and could not make that morning.
Thank God.
Yeah, and the judge said, Mr. Chhetry, you're lucky, okay? So you go home now, I give you a new date. So, and then that happened there, and then the other one that when I was working in the large firm, we worked for 6 months. We never saw the client. We know the name of the client, but we never met. And then after 6 months we were working, many of us, then we set up all the documents, and the client comes and you will meet us. That's what our hope was. And at the end of the day, what happens was that there was a lunch, in the conference room, they had set up all the documents. The client came from one door, he signed and all the paper and walked out from the next door. So then what happened was like there was no interaction with the client. You never saw a client. It's like you're working and that's it. And that was the two impression that gave me that if you work for somebody, you are going to get into something like, you don't even know. So then I thought maybe I should do my own practice so that I can, at least meet the clients. I know what I am doing. And actually, I should not have this kind of situation next time. So that inspired me to start my own practice.
Last question is for the newly arriving young immigrants who are trying to get into a professional career in the U.S., what would be your one-line advice?
Yeah, do the networking. I think that will really help you. Not everybody will be helpful, but you will find, maybe 1 out of 10, and that will help you.
Great. Yeah. And at the end, if anybody wants to reach out to you for any career advice, are you comfortable sharing your email address?
Yeah. Actually, my email address is kc@chhetry.law.com.
Okay, and if you are emailing Khagendra, please make sure you write at the end of the day in the subject title so that Khagendra knows where these emails are coming from.
Thank you so much for sharing your
thank you.
personal experience. We would also like to thank Beta Works for providing us this recording studio to record this interview today.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, please do subscribe to our channel at the end of the day, and do log into our website podcast@theendoftheday.com so that you can reach out to all those guests for any career advice.
Yes, and on that note, we will catch you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey guys, a quick note. If you have a personal story that you think might be helpful to the newly arriving immigrants in the US, please contact us. We would love to feature you in our podcast. Go to our website podcast@theendoftheday.com and write to us by going to the feedback section.
And by the way, if you love this podcast, you can support us with a small donation. Your help will enable us to continue producing more episodes. The link to support our podcast is in the description below.